There is a big controversy in Call of Duty right now, with the competitive community both for Warzone and competitive multiplayer worried about audio manipulation in Warzone. And if you're wondering what that is, let me play this clip for you.
You're by yourself, dude.
I'm dead. That's a really good nade by
Might be
accident.
someone in there, Stellar.
Yo, these kids, man.
Now, if you're wondering why your game sounds nothing like this, you would be correct. It's because this is audio manipulation in practice in Call of Duty Warzone. And namely in this case, it's boosting footstep audio whilst drastically reducing the sound of weapons firing in the game. So today I wanted to talk about audio manipulation, why it's controversial, what it is it cheating, and what are the next steps. To start with, audio manipulation in Warzone exists because the audio in Warzone is terrible. They've recently done an update in Season 1 Reloaded that definitely somewhat improved things, but the problem with Warzone's audio for me has always lied in its priority system. Warzone would rather you heard an airstrike 200 meters away than footsteps from the guy right behind you, and that's always been an issue in Warzone and something that still persists. Now, whilst this update did make a marginal improvement and actually made sound cues a little bit more clear and have a bit more of a sound space to them, it still isn't enough. And for the vast majority of people in Warzone, the audio just isn't that great. I've explained this in great detail in a previous video, but the number one problem with Warzone's audio is that it assumes that you're playing at 100% volume, when in reality, most people aren't, because the game is ear-bleedingly loud in terms of gunshots, plain audio, and other aspects of the game that make it unbearably loud to play the game at 100%. And this is where manipulating in-game audio comes into play. Now, the most popular method is a method by somebody known as Art is War, and what it aims to do is dynamically reduce the sound of gunshot audio and loud noises in Warzone whilst boosting footsteps. And to clarify, this isn't a sign for attack on Art is War. I think his work is really fantastic in terms of the sound engineering he does and the EQ balancing he does. It's a very impressive feat. And whilst lots of you will have opinions on manipulating in-game audio for games like Warzone, it's worth clarifying that this is a very challenging thing to do, and it's a specialty task. And ultimately, this service and what Art is War does, amongst other options for manipulating audio, wouldn't exist if the audio in the game was just good enough by default. So in the case of the Art is War audio profile, it massively boosts the range of footsteps by focusing on the frequencies of audio that footsteps play in, whilst also dynamically reducing the sound of weapons firing. And this creates an audio mix that's very competitive, allows you to hear footsteps from further away, whilst reducing gunshot audio. Now, I don't use the Art is War setup because I think it sounds pretty mushy for content, and I think some people would agree for that, but I also use my own version of more subtle audio manipulation. I use something called a limiter, which makes sure that once the audio in the game goes past a certain threshold for gunshots, it gets cancelled out, reducing the sound of gunshot audio and allowing me to play the game at 100% volume. Because at 100% volume, footsteps are fairly clear, and the limiter allows me to do that. But ultimately, whether you're using Art is War audio or you're using a limiter, the idea is fundamental to reduce the overall sound of loud audio like gunshots and the overwhelming plain audio at the start of the round, whilst maintaining the same level of footstep audio or boosting that frequency. This is something that you can really only do on PC. There are certain headsets on consoles that do have EQs that allow you to boost frequencies, and those are as close as you can get to that kind of level. But very few of them allow for VST level modification, which is audio effects in real time, and very few of them have the hyper precision of what you have on PC. But for the most part, you can get somewhat close on console to a similar concept. Boosting really low frequencies like footsteps, reducing the overall audio of the game, and mixing the audio more to your preference. On the whole, if we would say audio in Warzone is by default 0 out of 10, a good console headset will probably put you somewhere around 5 or 6, and customized PC audio will sometimes put you closer to around 8 out of 10. So it's definitely an advantage on the PC side of things, but you can do some things on console that will give you a better situation. I would also say for those of you on PlayStation 5, for whatever reason in my experience, PS5 audio has always been better than PC or Xbox. I'm not entirely sure why, it might be down to their proprietary audio engine, but whenever I've played on PlayStation 5, I've noticed generally better audio on the whole. Now, the reason this has become controversial is because a large number of people in the competitive community, both for Warzone and for multiplayer, have expected this to be banned from Warzone. Now, I don't mean banned in terms of anti-cheat banned, because you physically wouldn't be able to do that, and I'll get onto that later on, but they want it banned in terms of a gentleman's agreement not to use that audio. Ultimately, it is an advantage. It is something that manipulates the game in such a way that you have better footstep audio, better gameplay audio, and a more competitive audio mix than the vast majority of your opponents. But the reason it can't be banned from a Call of Duty level is because there's no cheating involved. The audio manipulation in question from Art is War uses a series of virtualized cables that have been installed onto the PC, and you use those audio channels and apply effects to those audio channels to receive the outcome, which is competitive audio. But this isn't massively different from things that already exist on PC. Virtual audio cables have always been a thing on PC, and lots of people have used them to record gameplay and stream in the past. And more importantly, if you're somebody who uses Elgato products like the Elgato Wavelink, which has its own set of array of audio balancing, or a Go XLR, which has its own set of balancing, they too split audio tracks into virtualized audio, and they are standard pieces of equipment that anybody can use and anybody can access. Now, most people use virtual audio cables, Go XLRs, and Elgato Wavelink software to mix their audio for content creation or streaming, but there are lots of really valid uses for it, and if you're just somebody who prefers more audible control, they're great options for you. But at a fundamental level, all of them use virtualized audio cables. They install devices into your PC to split the audio into separate channels that you can customize to your liking, and thus you couldn't actually ban any of these things from Call of Duty Warzone. Any audio device, for the most part, whether it's virtualized or one that's been installed as part of a hardware device like Wavelink or Go XLR, are entirely customizable for the most part of things, and almost all audio tracks on PC have that degree of customization. So it isn't cheating, it's something that can be done in any game with pretty much any audio device or virtualized audio device on PC, and it wouldn't be detected as cheating. These are considered to be standalone normal parts of the game and normal parts of your own PC that wouldn't be detected in any way, shape, or form. And even if the developers did finally decide, actually, we're not okay with virtualized audio devices, they'd have a huge problem because they would be hitting a number of regular, reputable hardware companies like Elgato and Go XLR, and they would generally have a pretty nightmarish time of trying to discern what is a regular audio device to one that's been customized, and I generally think it's probably borderline impossible for their anti-cheat to be able to do so. Not that I feel they should anyway, which I will talk about as well. So this isn't cheating, this isn't manipulating the game, this isn't manipulating game files or game data, you're just simply applying customizable sounds to your own audio tracks. And even from a top-down level, if you were to ignore all of the streaming devices and the split audio devices, where does that rabbit hole lead? Because if you say, okay, we're not allowing audio manipulation from virtualized devices, are we banning things like Astro A50s and Astro A40s for having customizable EQ and mix amps? Are we banning things like SteelSeries, which has SteelSeries Sonar, which is also a customizable version of audio, which is actually fairly close to the levels of customization of both Go XLR and Wavelink? And thus, this line of logic, questioning, and reasoning just keeps multiplying into more and more obscurity and more absurdity, when the reality of this problem is fairly simple. People wouldn't feel the need to customize their audio, EQ their audio, tweak their audio, or apply limiters like I do because the game is ear-bleedingly loud, if the audio in Warzone just worked. You don't really see people customizing audio for games like PUBG. I don't use customized audio for Valorant, and the reason I don't use these things is because those games' audio systems simply work. Now yes, although consoles can get close, I do concede that this is yet another advantage that PC gamers have on regular console gamers. And I'm not lying to you guys about that. That is genuinely a fact, and that is the case. But there's also an inherent list of advantages for being on PC. Higher frame rates, better performance, better graphics, more visual customization. I play on a 240 hertz OLED monitor on low graphics at 240 FPS. The advantages that I have in the crossplay generation are very high, and that's just me being entirely honest with you. And I think really what I'm getting at here is that although audio manipulation isn't a cheat, it isn't a hack, and it isn't something that I feel is worth attacking in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, in many ways, I have almost an appreciation for the guys who are able to understand this level of advancement in audio. What I'm getting at is that audio manipulation highlights a problem. The audio in Warzone is horrific, and really, when PC players have the ability to customize their audio a bit more extensively, it just creates an unbalanced playing field where console players in the crossplay generation are once again kind of being used as fodder. And I think that's the underlying issue that all of us have. Although this level of customization for audio is not in any way hacky or cheaty, it creates an uneven playing field. And that uneven playing field against console players wouldn't exist if the audio was just better for everyone. And a perfect example of that, I'm going to reference it again, is PUBG. PUBG on console and PC has pretty much fundamentally the same audio system, and nobody feels the need to customize that audio. Battlefield is also another fantastic example of a game that historically has had fantastic audio systems that has never needed any kind of customization or manipulation to be worthwhile and competitive in game. And it's really on the developers for Call of Duty Warzone to do two things. The first one is that the reason they said audio is challenging is because the audio for Modern Warfare 3 and Warzone is the same engine. And I don't think that should be the case. I feel the audio for Warzone should have separate values to the audio for multiplayer because they ultimately serve two separate modes with two separate purposes. And two, I just think the entire audio mix needs completely rebalancing. I don't need to hear the plane at 3000% volume, and although they've already nerfed that in Season 1 Reloaded, it's still too loud. I don't need gunshots to be ear-bleedingly loud. I don't need to hear an airstrike from 200 meters away or a mortar that's on the other side of the map. These are audio cues that are clogging up the audio system in Warzone. They are things that are inherently loud that make the gameplay experience miserable for everybody, and they just need to readdress the mix. I know audio isn't simple, I'm not claiming for it to be a simple task, but if other games can do it successfully in a battle royale format, Call of Duty should be able to too. So folks, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts and feelings in the comment section below. As always, thank you for reaching out, thank you for watching, chat with me in the comment section, and I'll see you in the next one.